Second. Hope everyone's having a good Friday. End of the day almost. Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order at 4 p.m. I'd like to announce the meeting is being recorded, and we'll do roll call.
Great. Director Brandt?
Here.
Director Freeman?
Here.
Director Flaherty?
Here.
Director Aguilar?
Here.
Director Deschler is not here, and Director Bertrand is not here, and Director Geis.
Here.
We got everybody right?
All right. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the Chumash people, who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Chumash elders, past, present, and future, who call this place, Anascoyo, the land that Isla Vista sits upon, their home. We are proud to continue their tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Chumash community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. I'm going to open the public comment period. This is the time for any members of the public to speak on items that are not on the agenda today. So if there are any off-agenda public comments, now is your time. All right, I'm not seeing any hands, not seeing anyone unmuting. So we'll close the public comment period and go to the first item, which is the LAFCO Municipal Services Review.
If you could give me one quick second, my computer is loading the document for the screen share, so I want to make sure to have it up once I start presenting it. So give me a slow day today. All right. Okay, here we go. So I'm excited to present the draft submission for our LAFCO Municipal Services Review. The first one that we're going to be submitting under this new process that LAFCO put forward this year that we discussed at a previous meeting. And just the summary of it is that they're going to be reviewing different service areas every year. And this year it's fire and public safety and policing, which is a service area we have services under. This MSR submission, a lot of the questions are pretty technical. So it's just a factual answer of what we put in as a response. And then some of the questions are more they're more policy based. They're more how do we want to describe or frame an issue that represents our district's position best. So I went in and filled in most of the all the technical information, and some of it we're waiting on some exact data from UCPD for, but it is filled out to the best of our knowledge at this point. But there are a few points in this, and I'm going to walk through them now, where we need board direction to accurately describe the district's position to LAFCO. So before I get into these more discussion points, which are in the document highlighted in yellow, I just wanted to ask the board if there were any questions or comments on the rest of the document before we get into these other points that we've highlighted as question points. So the parts of the document that are not highlighted, it's pretty technical. I can walk through it, but it is very long. So I'd hope everyone has had a chance to review it so far. But if you'd like me to, I could review this portion of it too. But it's more of the how many people are working, what's their kind of training, what are the outcomes of the programs, how many cases, things like that. So we filled all that out. So wanted to see what if you have any questions or comments on that section or on that part of this document first.
Okay, not seeing any questions.
So
You want to go and talk about the two outstanding items?
I'm sorry. Actually, I do have one question.
Okay.
This is something I'd seen an earlier draft that, I mean, this is actually, it's the same content. I was like, there was one update I was kind of expecting, which is, so we've got staffing experience and tenure to the service review functions. Please indicate number of years in the industry and years with the agency.
Yes.
Oh, I'm
We're
sorry.
waiting.
It says awaiting information. That's the answer. That's okay. I'm sorry. My brain was looking at it and not seeing numbers, and somehow it wasn't like appreciating that awaiting information is a pending number. I don't know. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, but this is we did update this, with your suggestion that we have the staff at UCPD that supervises the CSO, so that was added in. So we're going to be taking that into account.
That was the only thing I'm sorry.
Okay. So I'll get into the yellow highlighted parts where there are areas for board direction, and then we'll discuss. So me and Spencer and Ross had discussions over this in the last week. So the first one, and I think it'll be maybe better to take them one by one since they're pretty heavy topics each. So the first one is, are there any overlaps or duplicate services being provided by another agency within your agency's boundaries? So we had a response from LAFCO when we asked for clarification. We said, do you mean in respect to just public safety and fire, or for the agency generally? And the response was to talk about the agency generally. So we went ahead and put down these 3 points where there are some overlap and duplication from other districts and agencies. The first is acquire, construct, improve, maintain community facilities. The other one is the power as it relates to County Service Area 31 with lighting, sidewalks, gutters, and trees. And then the last one is the police protection services, where we were going to also add in some expansion if we were to include it on how this power is different than other CSD police powers. So because of its restrictions. So in terms of this question of overlaps and duplicates, wanted to turn it over. Does the board feel like this is an accurate representation of this question, or should we present this information differently? We decided to just list the 3 powers as they are in our government code. Should we present this differently? Should we, present different information here? So wanted to turn it back over.
And I will also add on, I think another thing that we had discussed is adding in a description of the fact that while we may have these concurrent or overlapping powers with other agencies, that is part of our charty, the part of government code that specifically mentions us not being able to supplant government services, in addition to how the police power is unique. That's definitely something I'd like to see in there. Do I see a hand? Any questions from the board? Director Freeman.
Yeah, what Spencer said. Additionally, I would have some kind of sentence about like a explanatory text about at least number 2 and number 3, talking about how these items are worded in a way where they are not designed to be fully duplicative. Even the thing that like the text there, but I would call that out and say that like we have these like additive powers with permission and contracts with the other agencies. It's not that we've got like, we have the same power. Like we can't just go out and do policing. We have the ability to contract for some services that kind of overlap, and it's a different thought process. And I'm just concerned that having the 3 powers listed there makes it sound like, oh, well, you've got a bunch of things. Why do you have these duplicative powers? But yeah.
And during this discussion, I also thought of a 4th one, which is graffiti abatement, that I think should be included in there. Well, my general philosophy on this question is we should, as far as all of our powers, be as exhaustive as possible. But I think that the approach of not really, I guess, providing more than the question is asking is helpful because, as I think was noted by the executive director of LAFCO, we'll have our chance to explain what all of this means in a future MSR.
Well, this is good input. We can easily and quickly take this all into account to submit. Is there anything else on this one, or do we want to move on?
Yeah, my comments were going to be just what Spence and Jay discussed. So,
well, the next one is pretty related. It's number 5, which is consolidation or reorganization with others has been considered in the last 5 years, and would an evaluation benefit your agency? So this is the answer we put in, is that we have had it as a board goal to work towards merging CSA 31 into the district, and so that an evaluation would be a beneficial thing for the agency. So is that accurate and in line with board position and policy? Okay.
do we want to put anything in there about, a community services district, is the beginning sometimes of forming a city, and that there's probably some consensus in the community that they would like to see us, become a city government. So I don't know if that makes any sense to you guys.
That certainly makes sense to me. As a statement, I wasn't catching that the question was asking that, but now that you
Okay.
say it, I realize that maybe consolidation with others or reorganization is what they should have written, as opposed to consolidation or reorganization with others. In which case, if they had moved the with others to the left, I would have thought what you just said would be applicable. And so I almost feel like they are asking that question, but
I do think that that's a good thing to include. I know that there have been many community conversations about that topic and many analyses about the reasons are why Isla Vista is organized the way that it is. And I think that this question to me seems like it's us stating to LAFCO that we would approve of them evaluating the benefits and drawbacks of something like that, which I would be very supportive of.
I was only reflecting on Jay's comments at the last meeting, where he was really discussing, for us to really change public safety services in Isla Vista, we almost need to become a city. Or, the other agencies have to change. And so, we don't really have the power to change the public services agencies in an easy way. We can do it in indirect ways, like we've already done with community service officers and stuff, but I'm good with, starting off with a baby step of trying to get service area 31 into the district as a baby step before we get into that big issue of cityhood.
I didn't feel though like your comment was saying that we wanted to do it right now. It was just kind of hinting at the idea that this is coming, potentially a while from now. Like that it's just on the long-term radar. And so
yeah.
Well,
The question is LAFCO should be thinking about that. When is it appropriate for even LAFCO to push cityhood on an area like Isla Vista? I don't know if they've ever done that, but
yeah, the question that we are being asked in this review is, would an evaluation of reorganizing as a city or consolidating with other districts benefit your agency? And I think that when it comes to analyzing something like cityhood, I think we can all say yes. There's a whole other conversation about the financial realities that we have to confront, but that's not really our job in this. I think our job is to say yes, we do approve if LAFCO wants to analyze this.
And per what Ross just pasted as the operative language, we do consider it, but we haven't, I guess the question is when you think of consideration, is it that we haven't had it as a agenda item to decide, do we want to right now file articles of reorganization, but we do consider the thought constantly when we're talking about different services. So I don't know when Ross was bringing that up, if it was.
Yeah, I think if that's made clear in the language, then I think that would be appropriate because it's an accurate reflection. But it is important not to give the impression that these are specific discussions that have come up in the course of an agendized, item. And to support what Spencer was saying, that the other part of it is would that evaluation benefit your agency? So if the language indicates that it is a constant matter of consideration because of the limitations imposed on the district by 61-250, and as such, yes, it would be helpful for LAFCO to conduct a review of incorporation as a municipal agency. I think that may cover all of the points that have been raised.
Thank you. Well,
any other comments from board members on this? Okay, well, I think we have good direction. Is there anything else?
Actually, I do have a question. So I don't think based on the wording that's there, it would, but would a power activation be considered a reorganization? I don't think so. I just want to make certain that given the weirdness of that.
No, it is. That's in fact, Jay, that's the language that the LAFCO statute uses. The Knox-Cortez-Hertzberg Act uses activation or new or existing powers, reorganization. All of those are used in the same context. So yes, that would count.
Okay, then I will throw out as the pitch the thing that I've brought up before about mentioning trash services. Occasionally I've gotten a few bites, but I'll at least bring it up. I'm happy to explain more if there are people have questions about it, but yeah.
I think the question asking us, have we considered it in the past 5 years? As you mentioned,
we've talked about it. Well, we actually literally considered that one.
Correct.
And then voted to table it until we were a going concern. And so, which was not to say no to it, but to indicate that some later point in time. And then at points, and that was, I believe, Bob's wording. And then at times since then, he said maybe we are a going concern soon. So.
Yeah, personally, I'm supportive of including that. We have considered it in the past 5 years. And I think that more analysis about these things is always good for our community.
I think that's a good addition too, especially now that we're getting into the composting business and that kind of stuff. We're doing a little bit more biting in there. And so I think it's appropriate. I thought, Jay, your presentation at the beginning was appropriate. It was just we weren't ready for it. Well, at least I thought we weren't ready for it.
So with that, are there any other parts of this document that you wanted us to specifically provide input on, Jonathan?
Yeah, just a couple. It might not even be, it's not a lot. It's just a couple points. One is if we have any suggestions to improve dispatch services within our agency or countywide. You know, I know it's come up a bit in the board meetings in the past, but I didn't have anything specific to put in here. So if there was board direction of what we want to put in on dispatch services, that'd be good. There's a few other smaller ones like this, not as meaty topics, but.
So do we believe that we're getting good information on dispatch services or real-time information on dispatch so that it's made available to us as, the board members and the public? Or is that one of those things that we just get a lot of difficulties of trying to get that information from the county? I don't know if their dispatch services provides good information.
Yeah, we've requested the 911 call data, which was harder to get and navigate than the citation and arrest data. That's the only information point though that I have.
I concur with that based on the board hearings about this subject when they brought in an auditor to audit public safety. Or a programmatic audit of public safety, they said that they were not able at that time to provide that data. And I believe now the county is embarking on establishing an office that is going to be collecting that data with the public safety departments. So I think if there's anything that we can include, I think it's a good idea for us to just voice our support for more data collection about call volumes, call types, call times, that sort of thing.
Would that be considered under dispatch services, or would that be considered under public safety? Because dispatch seems different. Dispatch seems like the act of calling, what happens when somebody calls, the information that comes in, then the information that goes out. It doesn't sound like it's dispatch is providing data to an entity. I don't know, I could be reading that wrong, but that's what I I put my own self on mute. That's all.
The way I think about it is because dispatch is the one taking the calls, they're where the data is going to be. So I think it does play a role. And of course, the other place where the data is going to be is with officers out in the field as well.
Yeah, but who decides? The entity that decides who gets the data is not dispatch services. Do you know what I mean? We don't, dispatch doesn't make the decision to give out data on dispatch. The sheriff makes the decision as to who gets the data on dispatch, right?
Right, and my understanding, at least from the hearing, was that they were unable to provide that data because of technological challenges within the agency.
Got it.
And there has been big discussions between sheriff and fire, because sheriff has been running fire's dispatch services, and some of the fire districts have broken off and provided their own dispatch services. And I've seen some of the data coming off fire dispatch services, and it really is part of their accountability of how fast do they get to a fire, how fast does EMS respond to a medical emergency. And then they're using that data to do things like, oh, if we want to build a new fire station, where should we locate that fire station to improve our response times? And so they're trying to use those performance metrics in at least in EMS and the fire safety services to really get to somebody that's in medical trouble within a time that they're going to save their life. So I think improving dispatch, which I can tell you there's lots of complaints about dispatch, is a pretty interesting question.
I have a comment. I'm wondering if this relates to some of the questions we've asked as a board over the years about how we give this information out to our citizens in like real time, and that particular angle of dispatch, like so that kind of the disharmony between UCSB alerts, community alerts, and what kind of messaging goes out to students who are enrolled in St. Barbara City College. And I'm not sure if this is the place to talk about that as far as dispatch services, or if that's addressed elsewhere in this document.
I think I'm kind of with Kirsten
Go ahead,
that
Jay.
the concept of dispatch is about a call comes in, and then the question is how do you get that call quickly routed to the correct agency? And there's a lot of controversy as some of the stuff that Bob's talking about, some of the stuff that's been like DOS was heavily involved in a lot of like 911 optimization paths where it's like you'll call on a cell phone and you end up getting dispatched out of the wrong location. I feel like this question is probably trying to get at those issues of when you have multiple agencies, how do you deal with those dispatching issues? But and I can see the kind of bringing in some of what Spencer's talking about with the data collection, in the sense that if the dispatching system is not really able to store that. But I actually, from what I remember talking to the people about the data that we were or were not getting, it was that like they had all the data, but they just didn't have any good query mechanism for it. It's like they were kind of like missing the SQL terminal that would allow them to like quickly build a query and print it, as opposed to necessarily not having it stored originally. But I feel like it's getting a little bit further out of field to be about. It's like when the word dispatch isn't about like dispatching, like sending out a dispatch, like sending out the tweet that. Well, actually, I missed the fire tweets. I don't think they have them anymore. Maybe they actually brought them back. I haven't checked. But like the UCSB alerts and stuff like that. I think that's like a very opposite side of the question. Just my thought.
Yeah, I'm going to hopefully help clarify this a little bit, but Kirsten and Jay are right in that dispatch services relates to literally the process of receiving a call for service and having the appropriate service unit respond and how long that takes. So things that they're looking at are service times, things like interoperability. 911 location is something that Jay mentioned on a cell phone. 911 location and from hotels and motels that have internal and fixed exchanges. So I worked on the Joint Powers Authority for the Los Angeles area radio interoperability communication system, LA-RICS, that came out of the analysis of 9/11. So I'm very familiar with public safety dispatch systems and processes and procedures. And that's really what this question is focusing on, not the collateral data. I think Marcos made a good point, as well as I think Spencer did, about this is probably the data collection aspect is probably more geared towards a different aspect of public safety, as opposed to the technical processes and procedures for receiving calls, documenting those calls, and getting the appropriate service unit out to respond to that call for service. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that, Ross. I think that makes pretty clear that we probably won't have anything to add unless any of my colleagues do have some suggestions on all of that side of things. Okay. Are there any other points to consider?
Yes. One minor one, which is the kinds of calls for service data we would provide. Yeah. Yes. So, this question is call data. Please indicate whether your agency, address these kinds of calls. And, we don't address any of these kinds of calls, but I did address, I did input the calls for service we do, which are the interpersonal violence investigators and the escorts from the CSOs. But in my discussion with the LAFCO executive officer, he did say, like, it would be up to us if we wanted to also provide the arrest and citation data for Isla Vista that would be sitting with IV Foot Patrol and UCPD. because they wouldn't be doing this kind of MSR on those agencies. So that data would be absent for Isla Vista in their review. So it's just I'm asking board direction. Do you want me to do that? Should I, we've already collected 2 years of this. I can get a couple more years and send them in, or do we want to keep it to just our call data, or do we want to submit, we would note that this is not us, but it's, the call data for the region we serve though. So wanted to get board direction on that.
I think my inclination is, since we have the data, we may as well share it, because we can, for one thing, and it's not like there's any secrets that's hiding there. And theoretically, although we are not contracting for public safety services that address many of those types of calls right now that are mentioned in that list that you were just at a couple seconds ago, theoretically, that is something that we have the power to do as a district. And so I do feel that it's relevant.
Okay. Great. Well, I'll compile that.
I ask a clarifying question, Jonathan. So are you saying that we have gathered data for the interpersonal violence investigator, the calls for service for that? Is that what you're referring to? I'm sorry.
No, so separately, we receive data from UCPD, like right here, on the caseload and the outreach load, workload for the investigators. So for example, in the presentation we got last year around this time for July 2019 through June 2020, we were told that she worked on 19 cases, and this was the breakdown of it. And then separately, like for the safety stations, call data, if someone calls for an escort, that's what our data is how many dispatched or walk-up calls for service do we have. But then this highlighted part, what I'm talking about is all the arrest and citation data. Like we had done that report to the board in November 2020 that was going over 2013, 2018, 2019, and going through like the MIP, the public urination data, like all of that report. So I would be compiling, requesting the other years asked for in here, 16, 17, and then sending that in along with what we already have as the call data in Isla Vista. And then note that this is not what the district responded to, but this is what existed here and what the environment we are in.
So basically you're providing data from other entities that have collected it. So UCPD, Sheriff, IV Patrol, and then you would be putting it into this. Okay, I understand.
Yeah. The idea is, and I wanted to make sure, we had board agreement on this, is the idea is that, we're not addressing these things, but these are the problems that our constituents would want us to address potentially. Like we're doing with the SNAP program. We looked at that data and we said, we could maybe change this. So I think it is relevant to add, but I wanted to make sure that we were okay with sending in, data that wasn't ours. But
yeah, that makes me think of one more thing, is that in this report, I think it is important that you indicate that the board has not considered the SNAP program yet. I know you allude to it, but I think it's important to say that it's pending.
Yeah.
Pending, yeah.
I can show you the exact language if you want to see it again.
Yeah, I read it.
Oh, you read? Okay, so that's what we got. And then the last thing, I just wanted to make sure if any ideas that anybody has, they have a question on any success stories or best practices, and there's so many. But I wrote this little narrative of our history working on public safety issues as one of our main issues as a district. But wondering if there's anything else we really want to highlight as a success story or best practice from IVCSD.
I think, and I'm just reading this portion of it now. I haven't reviewed this portion, but I think that really calling out the CSO safety station program as a prime example of a unarmed non-enforcement activity that law enforcement provides to the community that has a really positive impact and just the benefit of non-enforcement activities in general, I think is a good thing for us to highlight. So I know we've gotten a lot of positive feedback from the community on that.
So this is focused on public safety. Should we be focusing on other aspects that are positive, like the compost program, like the IV Beautiful?
I think we could theoretically put whatever we want here, but this is our MSR on public safety services.
Okay.
I mean, we could talk about our other events, like when we had Halloween at home as a public safety measure that wasn't law enforcement based. We can talk about those kinds of things too in here.
I do like the IV Beautiful only because I know nobody likes this, us to allude to this, but I mean, when an area is taken care of, when people put care into it, it does create a sense of safety and community. And so I think that that could be put in under the law enforcement or public safety.
I agree that that is a good thing to include. It does have a safety aspect of, and it aligns with our board goal of making Isla Vista a more livable environment. So I think that overlaps a lot with safety. And I also like your suggestion, Jonathan, to add in our work, not just on Halloween at home, but our general work to try and make social gatherings safer in Isla Vista through more organization. I think Halloween at home is probably the best example so far of that. But of course, there's been much more considered as well.
Cool. Yeah. And then lastly, is there anything else you want there to be discussed? I think we got a lot in here, but this is general open specific topics. I mean, this could be policing in Isla Vista is a very complex topic. So I don't know how, and LAFCO is pretty limited in what it can review on this area, but if there's anything else, we can put it in here.
Jonathan, I just wanted to mention about the section talking about the population of Isla Vista. This is an issue that has come up so many times for so many years. I'm really trying to get a good grasp of the population of IV, given that the census data includes areas outside IV proper. And I just wonder if there is language that we can put in that kind of just highlights the challenge of really providing services to a population that has a lot of variables. In the hope that maybe LAFCO could help us to be able to quantify the population in IV. I mean, we know Isla Vista students, but there's other, there's other groups in IV that we don't have a good sense of.
Yeah, that's a good point. Sorry, it's just so hard to type. My computer's not catching up with me. Just the population number, if you all want to know what exactly I did here, why I did what I did. It is really hard to have a population number for Isla Vista, so I just included as much good information as possible. So the IV census designated place, which is what the census, what the federal government uses to measure our population, it includes the CSD's boundary plus the property owned by the University of California Regents. So it's those two things combined. There's been rumors that Stork Ranch is part of it, and it's not. So it is really just whatever UCSB campus housing is, and then whatever Isla Vista's population is. So what I did here was I put, the last census said 23,000 between both. Now that number is definitely different, obviously, because we're at the next census, but that's the most recent number so far. And then the most recent number, and then at that time, UCSB, according to the campus profile published by the Office of Planning and Budget at UCSB, had 7,300 people living on campus. So you could just assume that there's 16,000 in Isla Vista at that point, at least. And then in 2019, 2020, UCSB's housing held 10,000 people. So we don't know what the Isla Vista population is now, but we know that we just know that that's 10,000 around us, and we're assuming it's at least 15 to 18,000 within, because that's what the government options study, when they looked at the exact census tract data, which normal people like us aren't able to do, that's the numbers they came up with. So that's the most correct numbers we have. Maybe after this census we can have better numbers, but that's all we could do for this time.
Great points.
I maintain that the census designated place included that area. At least I'm like, I've got the map up from 2000, and it did in 2000.
It did. In the year 2000 it did, but not in 2010 or 2020.
Not in 2010, you're saying. Interesting.
Yeah. If you look up the map for the census designated place, it just clearly excludes Stark Ranch. It's around Santa Catalina.
All right. Well, I know we'll all anxiously await when we will get some information about how many people live here, hopefully in mid-August as well. And of course, unfortunately, we know that we can't really trust that information either in a lot of ways, because there were a lot of blatant attempts to make the census fail from our federal government partners. And so we'll see what we get. I know we'll all be anxiously awaiting it. Any other feedback on this item? Okay, Jonathan, thanks for putting all of this together. This is really thorough, and I think really puts us, it's a really good first step to take for a municipal service review with LAFCO. And if you had told us that we would, I think, be in this place with LAFCO doing our first municipal service review and having a really thoughtful conversation when this district was first proposed to be created about 7 years ago, I think we would all probably be pretty astounded. So great progress being made. Okay, and you have another item on the community survey.
Oh, yes, but I was hoping if we can do a motion to approve with amendments this document.
Does anyone have a motion?
I'll move to approve with the amendments discussed during this meeting.
Is there a second?
I second.
I will second. I'll let Catherine
Okay.
second.
Made by Geis, seconded by Flaherty. Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to a roll call vote.
Great. Director Brandt,
Yes.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Deschler.
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
and Freeman.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. And now to the next item on the community survey.
Great, and then this is just an informational item. There is a survey that LAFCO has put out for the public or even agency staff or members to fill out. So it's on here for the public to know that it's available, and it's open until September 3rd for people to fill out, and the results will be part of the municipal service review in some way. So please get it filled out yourselves and share it with others.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Jonathan. With that, our next regular meeting is going to take place on May 11th at 6 p.m. It's in a couple of days, so we'll see you all back here soon. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
I will second.
Made by Deschler, seconded by Freeman. Is there any public comment or board comment for the good of the order? Okay, we'll go to a vote.
Okay, Brent,
Yes.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Deschler,
Yes.
Geis,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Freeman.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, everyone. I hope everyone has a good, safe weekend.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.